to mitigate your water usage at home, again, that's not in your best interest at this point in time.
Unless we prevail and get the amendments that we think we're going to prevail on. But you're 100% right. It's kind of scary stuff. But, okay, don't wait for this tidal wave to hit you. Start thinking about ways to implement savings now. Greenhouse gas emissions. One of the things you can do is create a footprint or an inventory. In fact, there's a niche, a brand new boutique job market out there. You may have some college kids looking for a job, or you yourself may be thinking about it. Learn how to create a carbon footprint for communities. Where do you get the information? You go to the California Air Resources Board website. You go to Cool California, COOL California.com. The state of California, Stephen Chu, who now heads up the Department of Energy, has created computer models for calculating carbon footprint. There are a lot of opportunities in this arena to become the carbon footprint guy. And think about it, you can develop your tools and come into a community like Lake Forest and you can do a carbon footprint inventory, and you now own that information and you license the information and the access to your database to the communities that you've created those carbon footprints for. You do the same for homeowners. Why would you want to do that? Because what you measure, you manage, and what you can measure as being savings, you're going to get credit for it. And it's coming down the road, you're going to have to do it anyway. So you might as well begin doing the process now and learning about it so that you can do it effectively and efficiently, and you don't get some band of gypsies coming through here with a lot of money, or looking for a lot of money to do what you might be able to do yourselves.
Just
Yes, sir.
an add-on question with what I asked, and you said in August the standard will be set, and when will it go into effect?
January 1,
Of
2010. Now, a case study involving a community in Northern California called Arcata. Absolutely beautiful little community. It's kind of like Laguna Beach was 100 years ago, versus Signal Hill. Now, Arcata is a progressive community, a lot of forward-thinking progressive people, and they undertook a voluntary effort and they developed their own carbon footprint for their entire community. They've adopted voluntarily a number of savings programs. Signal Hill, on the other hand, drew a line in the sand and said, hell no, we won't go. You'll have to make us. And Signal Hill was one of those communities faced with the water runoff zero tolerance standard. They invested, at last count, over $2 million in legal fees to fight it. They lost. The $2 million that they spent on lawyers could have been used to implement the program, and now there's a horrible political, you can imagine, battle going on in the city over decisions that were made there. Don't let your community fall into the trap of thinking that you can hire lawyers to fight this, and because you can spend a lot of money on lawyers, believe me, but you're fighting the tidal wave. And it's going to be tough. The best you can do is make sure you've got strong advocates at the local level working with the elected officials, with the regulators, so that you can adopt some practical ordinances and regulations at the local level, and don't spend a lot of money on lawyers if you can avoid it. Consider changing out your common area. We have whole communities that are looking to change from natural turf to artificial turf. They've actually got artificial bushes. You wouldn't know the difference. You drive through the spectrum, most of the median strips in the spectrum are artificial. Don Brent's not a dumb guy. He knows what's coming down the road, so he and the city and a number of other people have made a tremendous investment in changing out their common areas. And so there's a number of things you can do. You can consider renewable energy resources. Many of you will have to look at your guidelines, your architectural review guidelines and your enforcement guidelines to allow solar, wind. You know, a lot of these home wind units, I, for one, don't think they're energy efficient at this point, but they're coming down the road with some new technology that might make these wind turbines much more efficient so that homeowners are going to want to put them on flagpoles and stick them in their yard. Well, I'll guarantee you, you're going to have a lot of homeowners that aren't going to like that. So you've got this process you're going to have to go through and sort it out at the board level. And if I were you, I would allow them, but try to architecturally control them and do some other things. But you need to start thinking in those directions. You need to start thinking about funding strategies, because the tidal wave of regulations will result in tremendous expenditure. So you need to start looking at grants, rebates. You're going to have to look at dues increases. How do you go about doing that? Make sure you administratively understand the process of special assessments. Loans are hard to come by, but hopefully in the next couple of years there'll be more of them, and we think the federal government and the state of California are going to be offering more loan-based programs for communities like yours. Partner with local wholesale and retail outlets, Home Depot, Lowe's, other places, so that you can be sure they stock the items that your community members and that you will need in order to achieve your targets. Create new internet-based systems for transactions. That avoids transportation costs. Create new management and reporting tools so that you can hold people accountable. Remember I told you about putting in your specifications for your landscaper, your painter, all these other vendors. Compliance with standards, alternative fuel standards or training standards, certification that they've gone through some kind of a consciousness raising program so that your vendors are all in tune. Now here's one that I want to spend a little time on. I know we're running out of time and I don't want to keep you too long, but this one's really exciting. Not much of what I said tonight is exciting, but this one is. Cap and trade of carbon greenhouse gases in water. What do you have a lot of out here? You've got a lot of green belt, you've got a lot of trees, you've got a lot of things that are what we call carbon sinks. They absorb carbon. There are industries out there that emit humongous amounts of carbon. Those people that emit carbon are going to have to shop for a credit against their emissions if they want to stay in business. One of the things that we are doing, that I am currently drafting, is a program that will allow you to sell or trade your green belts, your green common area, and turn them over to Chevron. You own them still. You don't divest your interest in them. They essentially rent them from you. And in return for them receiving your credits, they pay your costs. So your common area expenses are subsidized by industry. And this is believe me, this is an exploding area. It's already happening in Florida, and California we are on the verge of making it happen here. So get in the game, think about it. One of the best ways to do it is inventory what you got. Know how many acres of particular types of plants you have, and understand the difference in quality of those plants in terms of carbon sink, carbon absorption. Let's talk about contracts with vendors, indemnity provisions. I can't tell you the problem most homeowners associations have. When I walk into a community, no one has really looked at the contracts of their vendors. The managers are busy. They have a slew of contractors that have done good work for them, and they use those contractors over and over and over. The contractors have form agreements. 9 times out of 10, the form language, that's the fine print on the reverse side of the purchase order, favors them, not you. And you end up indemnifying them if they cause injury, if they breach a statute, if they don't meet a regulatory guideline. So what you want to do is change that, make sure that the indemnity provisions flow in your favor, and that your contractors give you a warranty that they will comply with the standards, all of the EPA standards, all of these new standards specifically. Most of them don't. That they carry the proper insurance, so that if you are one of those community associations that suffers a sewage leak, like the Metropolitan, and you had a vendor who failed to clean out the sewage line on a regular